Hey guys, Nathan Sisler here, Eddie Games, creator of Hippie Skate and Foxel and other things. And today I want to talk about something which is kind of controversial, which is using AI for development, especially as an indie developer. I'm not against it. It's amazing. Sure, it's controversial, but it allows an independent developer like me to do a lot of things I really couldn't have done. And I just want to show you the way I work with it. And, you can leave your comments about it, what your thoughts are. But let's get into it. Um, so I'm going to show you a little bit under the hood of my app, Foxel. Here in Unity, it's going to start, so these are all the Foxel creations, and they're all loaded up from my database. So I've been building this for a few months, and here is all the code to everything, to the editor, to the town, to the database, to the backends, to everything. This is so much code that it would have taken me years. And it's all very nicely written. It has notes that are really helpful. It's amazing. So there's a lot of controversy. Some people hate AI. They think it's stupid. Some people think it's useless. Some people think the code it writes is trash. All of these things are, I suppose, are very valid. I've worked with AI independently. I've worked with it in a team setting for companies that have hired me, and I have thoughts on all of these things. So let's get into it. Copilot and Cursor have their uses. Essentially, Cursor is just a more advanced version of Copilot. It's its own editor, very still built on kind of the framework of Visual Studio. So keep that in mind. But I haven't touched things like Claude yet. I hear good things, but honestly, personally, I got a feeling that I would just go back to this process. So currently, the limitations I'm hitting with my website is that loading up all the vehicles is hitting many limitations on WebGL, which is a platform I'm working with currently. So for that is something that I've been putting off, or just waiting for the right time to do, which is called lazy loading, in which essentially I pull everything from the database. Um, I well, what I should say is I check how many vehicles I have. I put in a placeholder in the map, which I'll test a couple things, see which road I want to go down. I'm thinking that anything close to the camera would be the real car, load up about a good amount, 40 cars around the camera, and then anything further away from that is just like a colored block off in the distance. Then as the camera gets closer to that colored block, you actually pull that data and load up those cars. And while you're loading up those cars, you delete cars that are further away from the camera. So this way I only have about 40 cars loaded up at a time, but they're all constantly swapping in and out. You don't notice. And it's a cool way. It'll feel like the town actually might, hopefully has like thousands of cars is my dream. But they're not detailed because, you're not close to them. So let's take a look here at the town and what I'm going to be working with. Got my town manager here. Here is max cars to load. Right now is 40, which is the cars you go here. So let's take a look at this script. And you can see I've got the max cars listed right here. Default to 65. I knocked it down to 40 because I was running into some crashes before. But let's see. Before we get into the AI aspect of things, let's take a look at what we're dealing with down here. So you can see max cars to load. download all the cars from Superbase, which is where I store them. Um, and so what it's going to do is it's going to get all of the cars that are stored in JSON data, like the way that the cars are crafted is JSON data, um, and essentially build the cars on the fly and load them into the town. So far, so let's go to my process. Why I talk about um, that these things are good. These different tools have their different purposes. One of the things with uh, my process here that's different from what I would be doing if I was working at a company is that I have free reign to rewrite and restructure everything here on the fly. If I want to completely replace 5 different scripts, like 5 different big scripts, I get to do that. It's my final call. I don't have that kind of freedom at a company. So at a company, a lot of times, you don't get to completely work big time architecture. So that's a big thing. A lot of times at a company, the architecture's set. You don't have a say in that. So you're going to be working with what you got, which means, go through the code, look for your um, look for your bugs, look for your added little features, and build within the architecture. And in that sense, Copilot and Cursor, I think, are actually really powerful. And those were the tools, when I'm working on external code bases like that, team projects, those are the tools that I think were more effective. Although, I didn't have a lot of time at some of these other projects to really polish my process, but these are my initial thoughts. But let's take a look at my process here. So I'm going to pull up ChatGPT here. Let's slide it over so you guys can see it. Um, and I'm going to say, uh, it's kind of hard, kind of while I'm shooting a video, and to think about what I would really ask for here. But I'm going to sort of try to describe best as possible. I've been working a lot with ChatGPT on this project. I don't know how much it has stored in memory, what kind of profile it has built on me, the work that I do with it. Sometimes it seems like it knows my whole project, and other times it doesn't seem to know at all. So I kind of I have to remind it oftentimes. And one of the things also that I'll say that is a very useful tool for you working with this process is that each chat begins to lose or it begins to lag and slow down after a couple days, or a couple hours, depending on how much you're working with it. But these chats, as I'm working on a feature, putting more and more code in, they start to really lag out. And at a certain point, what I have to do is I have to go, hey, you're starting to get really slow. Like, I think maybe I should start a new chat. Can you give me a summary of what we've been working on here that I can feed into a new chat? And then it'll get it up to speed, and then I can take it from there. And that I've found is has worked fairly well. But sometimes, like in this case, I'm just going to start from scratch, and see how close it's going to get. So I'm going to tell it and see if it remembers. So I'm going to say I want to add a feature to my app Foxel. I'm having trouble loading a lot of cars into Foxel town on web, and it's time to implement, I can't type, lazy loading system. Okay, so here's the key, and here's where you really got to know your project and understand what you're making and how it's constructed. Is I can load up to 10 scripts into ChatGPT on this first pass. So I'm going to find, and I don't want to add 10 scripts if I don't have to. I want to add one script if that's all that's important. But I got to give it right now the surrounding code, the ones that I find that it's going to find the most important. So let's see if we can figure that out. So I got my folder here with town, and probably back end, and then possibly some of the editor scripts. But let's open up town and go to the most important one, which is my Foxel Town Parade Manager. Is the main one that's one we were just looking at. That's going to load it up. So let's add that. I've got Foxel Town City Grid. It builds the grid, but it doesn't deal with the cars, so I don't think I need to worry about that. Foxel Town car card, don't need to worry about that. Edit session, ground placer. It's going to place the car when after they're built, place them on the ground, and might handle part of the dealing, but I don't think it's important in this case. Local town managers, part of local save data and part of a local town. I may run into these same kind of problems, but if I do, I'll have to restructure a lot and maybe combine these two scripts, or maybe add what I'm doing to local town manager, but I'll cross that bridge later. I just want to keep moving. What else? I think that's a good one for here. Let's go back to scripts. Let's go to backend and see if there's anything important in backend that it's going to run into. I think admin, car loader. I'm trying to think. Sometimes I'll go individual student. I'll read through some of these scripts, but it's not. If I accidentally add one that has no relevance, it's not going to really break things. But let's see what else. Foxel car uploader, I think not necessarily, has some information about the way that it's that each car is stored as JSON data, and maybe part of the algorithm for storing the cars. So there might be something important there. I think the Foxel JSON is an attachment to that as well, but I'll see. Like services, kind of an edge case thing. See what this config. This is about the information about my database, so definitely not opening that. Based on these three scripts, let's see what we get, because at least it'll be enough information to help you guys out and kind of explain what I'm doing here. So for those of you who maybe can't see this, based on what I asked it, I want to add a feature to my app, Foxel. I'm having trouble loading a lot of cars into Foxel Town on web, and it's time to implement a lazy loading system. Thought for 26 seconds. Awesome, let's bolt the lazy loading and pooling system so Foxel Town WebGL only downloads cars into pages and only keeps a small active window of cars instantiated around the one you're focused on. Well, essentially the camera is what I was saying. This keeps memory, draw calls, and GC pressure way down while still letting you swipe arrow through cars seamlessly. Below is a drop-in replacement for your Foxel Town Parade Manager that counts total published cars first. Cheap head style request using, well, I don't know what it's trying to tell me there. Build a city grid, parade path, one size for the total. Pages super base results using limit offset. I don't know what it's referring to there. I should know probably. I'll probably remember at some point. pools car game objects and keeps only a sliding window 60 to 100 cars alive near the current index. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. I might need to knock it down to 40, but we'll see what happens. I think 60 was working before, but let's see. Keeps your existing public surface next car. That's great. Notes. This uses your existing record shape and creation path marker car save manager. Yeah, that's fine. That's what I'm, so it's telling me that it recognizes my other scripts, ones that I didn't even upload, but it knows that I'm using those, and that's great. Um, Follows the same supervised auth calls. Yeah, that's good. So here's the script. One thing that it may be different that from yesterday, maybe different from last week, is that I don't trust it when here's a drop in replace. I don't trust this at all. But it's not that this isn't good. There may be some valuable stuff here for sure, but I highly doubt that it's got this whole script. It rewrote this whole script perfectly, and that it, this is one of the things. This is where you need to understand what you're doing and what you're building and every little detail and go through this. So let's take a look at how it rewrote the script and what it's going to do. And one of the things that I will do, and why not, is that I will just replace my other script. It's not like I can't completely recover the old script. I mean, a lot of my process is just to go, oh yeah, you tell me that this is right. Now, I could either read through it line by line and think about it forever, or I could just throw it in the game, hit play, and see what's broken. And that's a lot more fun. I mean, that's a lot more fun. I don't know if you like reading through miles of code and trying to imagine in your head what's going on, but having it generate this, throw it in, and see what kind of wackiness or possibly amazingness comes of it, is cool. So I'll give it a brief read over, and then maybe I'll throw it in and see what happens. One of the things I'll say is that oftentimes it doesn't, I'll throw it in and it doesn't have errors, or it has small errors, but it retains your previous variables. It retains your, variable settings, or it keeps your previous variables, and it retains based on that. Unity will retain your settings. So a lot of things that you think would probably break don't break. Let's see if there's any red flags here. Well, for starters, I guess I'll just throw it into Visual Studio because that's a little easier. So it's by Parade Manager script. I'm going to just select all and throw it in. Again, it's pretty nuts. There's no red dots here, no red anything. So apparently it's saying that this should work. There's no, I'll save, I'll go back to Unity. Let's see what happens. I'll go to my console here. Unity's doesn't see any errors with the script yet. Interesting. Well, okay, here we go. It's going to compile. These are, I think, your usual whatnot. Let's hit play and see. Let's see what happens. Okay. So far, so good. From what I can tell, navigating the cars seems good. I didn't even go through to see what kind of different variables and the way that it reworked the variables, but everything over here seems good. Max active cars 120. Um, One of the things that if everything, before I was loading up 40 cars, um, I I I'd have to check how many cars I've got in storage. This does not. I don't know if I have, if if users have made up to 120 cars yet, but um, this does not. This is definitely not 120 cars on here. It looks like this is still around 40 cars. So um, I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Let's go to the end of the line. So I'm hitting some issues here, and we've got a error. Seems to be running every couple seconds. Something, again, not not a huge red flag. Hey, it's been a couple weeks, and I finished the lazy loading system. You can see it at foxeltown.com if you go there. It turned out to be a lot more complicated than I initially thought when I made this first part of this video. Um, that is not the AI's fault. It's not my fault. As the process, in this video, I put in the very first script. I hit play and it did something, and I realized that little by little, that's not what I wanted. I made another thing. I realized, all of these passes were cool and good and whatnot, but each one told me that no, you're going to have to do a little bit more and a little bit more. One of the big things that I ran into was that um, I was hitting a memory cap, specifically on my phone. WebGL memory on your mobile phone versus on desktop is a lot more limited. So I had to fix a lot of complications there. But yeah, you can see the lazy loading system here, and go to foxeltown.com, see it for yourself. And if you have any questions, leave them here. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to keep trying to do it. If you want me to make another video like this, let me know. If there's any aspects of my process that you'd like to get a little bit more in depth with, let me know. But thanks for watching.